All right, we're going to go, we're going to start in just a moment here. If you see me looking at another computer or looking like I am, that's because I am. There's a lot going on here.
What's that in the background, Kathy? It looks like a big flower.
It is a big flower. It's a rose. Nice big painting. So, yes, if you do have questions, please post them in the chat. I feel like this is tilted a little bit. And we'll go on in just a moment. Good to see you all here. All right, I'm gonna quiet things, do not disturb and things. All right. And so, this Zoom is all about, or YouTube Live, whatever, wherever you're watching, is all about going into the darkness and what that's like. The way it will be shaped is basically based on your questions. I mean, I have stories I could tell, but it's more going to be shaped around what's interesting to you. What questions do you have? Why did I do it? Is there blackness the whole time? The answer to that is yes. It is pitch black 100% of the time when you're on a dark retreat. And to the point where I was sitting meditating one day and then I was like, are my eyes open or closed? I don't even know at this point. So strange, because we're just not that used to that kind of experience where, and you don't have that much awareness, I think, of eyelids like all the time. So we're not used to having the eyes not see when they're open. So it becomes really crazy for the mind. So, let's see. I see a couple of chats here. People are still popping in. And I essentially spent from Saturday till Saturday in the dark. And I'm gonna mute some people. Let's see. Hello. People are still popping in. So yeah, I'll describe the structure of the room, how the room was set up, the whole building actually. I'll tell some stories. I actually told everybody I'm going to go into the dark for 3 days. And then with the hope that I would do it for a week. But I didn't know. So I just told everyone I'll be in there for 3 days. And then I was in there longer and my friends got worried about me because they're like, Kathy's not responsive. Shall we send in the National Guard? And I was just having fun by myself in the dark. So the answer to the question, was I all by myself, is yes. I was all by myself in a room, and the room was fairly decent size, not huge, thank goodness, right? I didn't want to be alone with more space to navigate. But so I'll tell you about how the space was set up. There, it was essentially kind of someone's converted garage that he had converted into a 2-bedroom apartment in Oregon at a place called Dark Retreats, Oregon. And so it was, the 2 stalls of the garage were kind of now bedrooms with a hall between them. So I was in one bedroom, there was a hall, and then there was another woman dark retreating in the other room. Now I'm laughing because one of the comments here is, oh my God, dark, silent, and alone, right? And it's true, it was pretty much silent. Here and there, you could hear the woman in the room across the hall from me had brought some crystal bowls. And so after dinner, she would play them. I'm really grateful she didn't just play them at random times. She pretty much played them after dinner. So I had a little concert I'd hear. And then here and there, I would hear the sound of the cutting board in the kitchen. So a knife moving into the cutting board. And then, every once in a while, maybe a dog bark or outside noises. But we were in the woods, which you could also construe as like creepy and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't find it that way. I found it like, oh, we're going into nature, and it was lovely. So the way it was structured was there were two people in charge of the retreat. They called me to discuss the retreat before I went. So what are my intentions? Why am I doing it? What to bring? Do I have any questions? Stuff like that. They didn't actually ask me, like, are you under the care of a psychiatrist or anything like, is there anything to be concerned about with you going in there? But that's another story. So I had that little preliminary chat, which actually made me super excited to go in. I was already very excited, and the stimulation for entering the dark was really the friend of a friend. I didn't know anyone personally who had gone into the dark, but I did know a friend of a friend, and she said, I've done all these different things. I'm just going to mute everyone for a second. I've done all these different things. Studying consciousness here and going on this trip to Egypt and doing all these different things. And the one thing that impacted me the very most was the dark retreat. So I was like, well, cool, sign me up, right? When can I go? And I had emailed this place called Sky Cave Retreats in Oregon, also in Oregon, interestingly. And they were like, yeah, we can get you in 2024. And I was like, I don't want to go in 2024. I want to go now. But put me on your waiting list. I'm totally happy to pop over. Oregon is not that far. And so I would love to be on your waiting list. And they haven't called yet. That was probably in the fall that I had gotten on their waiting list. So when I found this place on Facebook, I was super excited because I had done a lot of research, and I looked around and I could find places in like South America or in Europe to go. And I'm like, I don't really want to go all the way to Europe to close my eyes. So in a room by myself, right? So I found this place on Facebook and talked with them. And in fact, it was somewhere where the friend of a friend had already gone. So I kind of trusted these people a little bit, and off I went. The wait time to get in was not very long at all. Essentially, they said, this is our Google Calendar, and any weeks that don't have two individual names on it, there's a spot for you. And so I searched the calendar. I was like, I want to go in February, and I found my spot. It was pretty reasonable in price. I ended up staying, like I said, a week in total darkness. And beyond that, I stayed a couple of extra days just to integrate. And that is very important, okay? Because you can't just spend a week in total darkness and then go to LAX, right? Go to the airport. It's very shocking to open your eyes, really, like at the end of 7 days in darkness. Yeah, I can see why babies cry when they're born. It's intense. Like the whole world is intense, not just seeing. So it ended up, I'm not sure exactly how much it ended up being. Now there's a place in Crestone that's functioning this summer and next fall. And what I do remember is my entire trip, including flying there, is less than I would have spent in Crestone, which was, I think, about $2,000. Okay, so I was happy with myself. Did you all hear me? My neighbor is now making some noise. All right, good. All right. Yes, Leonia is saying if you do it, go all in. You cannot see in the dark. Okay. This is in response to one of the questions. It is pitch freaking black. Like the whole place is 100% black, including the hallway, including the bathroom. Okay. So taking a shower, 100% pitch black. Eating food, all pitch black. The whole place is pitch black. Yeah, I did everything in the dark for 7 days. There was no escape from darkness. Now that said, if I wanted to, I could have just opened the door and walked out, right? If it got too scary, too intense, or whatever. It was cold in Oregon the week I was there. It snowed. And so luckily, happily, I had a heater. There was good ventilation. And apparently the people who came the week after me weren't as lucky as I was because the power went out. So they got to have the experience of dark and cold and no hot showers and no warm food. So I picked the right week to go. I didn't experience dark and cold. I think I probably would have bailed if that had been the case because I'm not in it for the cold. Let's see. Yeah, so I had an expectation that I would sleep a lot, in part because of a book I read. There is a book online, and I think the name of it is Hygienic Dark Retreats. And the guy who wrote that book definitely has some opinions about dark retreating, including the idea that you should not let your free will dictate anything. You should sort of let your intuitive impulse and your subconscious dictate everything you do in the dark. So basically, he said, no breathing practices, no meditation, no this and that. You just follow the will, not even the will, just the impulse of your body, the impulse of, I need to sleep now. I need to go to the bathroom now. I need to just lie down. And I had read this book. So I kind of followed that a little bit during the first 3 days. And then I was like, you know what? I like breathing practices. I like this and that. So I began to engage in breathing practices, which I actually find to be key for stilling your mind. I had a much, much better experience in the dark from the end of day 3 onward. So the first 3 days, my mind was just very yappy, talking about reiterating things over and over, like this about my son, or when is food gonna come, or this happened, and how do I resolve that thing? And essentially, the nature of the mind is very chatty most of the time. You probably talk to yourself in some way or another. Okay. Well, in the dark, you don't have the same kind of distractions you have in daily life. So I can't be like, I'm gonna go over and make myself a sandwich. Or, I like that picture on the wall, but it needs to be moved a little bit. We don't have visual distraction. We don't have the freedom to get in the car and go somewhere. We're kind of isolated in a room with no one to talk to. No screen. No, let me Google this. And so we're deprived of a lot of the stimulation that we have available all day long, which means as emotions come up, there's nowhere to go to sort of avoid them. Right? You have to be present with them. I did not have a clock, right? I have no light. I can't see anything. Like any screen, including this, right, is going to have a light. So no technology of any kind. No even little red lights in the room. Zero light. Okay? I had a hot water tea kettle, no light on it. Right? I only missed once, so I only got hot water on the floor once. And I'll talk more of those practicalities in a few minutes. So the first 3 days, my mind was super talkative, blah, 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 talking. And what I recognized is, yeah, it's like the same 10 things over and over. Every once in a while, a new thing comes in, but then it goes back to those same things over and over and over and over. Including someone just asked about the bed. Was the bed cozy? No, the bed was terrible. Which we fixed over time, but yeah, it was not. It was one of the hardest beds I have ever been in my life. So yep. And then there comes a point where the mind is just like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this, right? It's a little bit boring to think about the same things over and over, and it releases its grip. And then the practice of being in the dark was super enjoyable because it got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. That's my mindfulness timer right there, that rooster. So the mind just sort of let go, and then it becomes reliably more enjoyable and meditative and still and inward. At the end of, I can't remember if it was day 3 or day 4, I started to see images at my third eye, particularly things like the flower of life. So sacred geometry flickering in orange colors, mostly orangish and yellows and things like that. So that was kind of fun, but like, and as I said, I was doing breathing practices. So my breathing practices and meditations went to this deep, profound level, and I realized some things about myself and the universe and the nature of the ego and things like that. So that was really, day 5, 6. And if I could have stayed even longer, I probably would have, just because it was profoundly enjoyable by that point. So let's see. I'm just gonna, if you have questions, let me know your questions. Okay, this is a beautiful question that I think is, well, let me go back to the bed because I haven't really resolved that with you. So it was hard. And I was sleeping probably like 11, maybe 12 hours a day. And I expected, honestly, in the beginning to probably sleep more than that and just catch up on all the missed sleep I've had in the past decade. But this bed was extremely hard. So each day I was able to interact with a woman twice. Once when she brought breakfast and once when she brought dinner. And I asked her to bring breakfast and dinner at specific times so I would know what time it is. So I'd keep that little tether to ordinary reality. Okay. Now, because she also said, well, Kathy, you could choose to just have me drop all the food sometime between 10 and 2. And I was like, I am so not ready for that. I really want like 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. I want to know more or less what time it is. And, I knew usually around 8. Usually around 9, she would start to cook and sometimes cut things. And so I knew, oh, okay, it's 9 in the morning. And I woke up like an hour ago. So I woke up 8-ish and it's 9 and breakfast is going to come in an hour. Okay. And then again, when it was like 5 o'clock, she would start to, cut vegetables and things. So again, I kind of knew, oh, yay, dinner's coming soon. And I really liked that. That felt good for me to have some idea of how long I've been sitting here in the dark by myself. How long it might be till I eat. Things like that. I think next time I might, on a couple days, just be like, you know what? Bring my food sometime between 10 and 2. Bring all of it, and I'll just have that experience of not knowing and learning to be okay with that. The food was very good, by the way. And what she would do is she would knock on the door, and there was a basket. There was a hook on the outside of the door and a basket. And she'd put the food, which was these little ceramic bowls always with a plastic lid, and she'd put those into the basket. And then I could either open it whatever time I wanted, or she had knocked, so I could go out and talk to her. So because the bed was hard, I was like, hey, the bed's a little hard. And she said, we'll put a camping mattress on it for you, which changed the situation completely. From that point on, it became very comfortable. Did I change clothes in the dark? Yes, I did everything in complete blackness. And the food was very good. And initially I thought, well, maybe that's just because I have nothing else to do. Breakfast is like this wonderful experience because like it's a break from being by myself. It's a break from sort of the monotony of like whatever I've brought into this room with me. And I brought some fun things that I'll talk about. But that wasn't the case. The food was just as good when I was out of the darkness as it was when I was in. Although eating in the dark is fascinating because the visuals of our food give our brains so much information about expectation of what something is going to taste like. So I think it was the third day I got my breakfast and I was eating this thing. And by that point, I started to eat with my hands because I was like, one, I like knowing the texture before it reaches my mouth. And two, it just gives more of an interactive experience. And plus, then you don't really miss or try to scoop something up that's not there. So I got this thing in my breakfast and I was like, I know I've had this before and I have nowhere to place it. I really don't know what this is. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, it's a little slimy. It's not banana. I'm not sure. What is this thing? So later I was like, what was in breakfast? What was breakfast? And she was like, well, there was avocado. And I was like, it was avocado. I did not know. I couldn't tell what that thing was, but I knew I had had it before. So it's quite fascinating how much sight informs our experience of eating. One fun thing about the meals she prepared is that she always tried to add different textures. So let's say it's oatmeal. In the oatmeal, she might put hemp seeds for a little more, hard texture, things like that. So even on salads, like there's chia or there's ground up nuts or there's something to make it kind of interesting. And I appreciated that. The other thing she did was really cater to what we were interested in terms of eating. So I have a long list of things I don't eat, and thank goodness she was able to honor that. And then the woman across the hall doesn't eat garlic or onions or banana. So she kind of like navigated that. So I didn't eat garlic or onions for a week either, just because of that. And as a side note, I never saw the woman across the hall from me because she went into the dark before I went in and she came out of it after I came out. She was set to be there like 16 days or something like that. We did not interact at all. So, in response to Keith's question, how many of us were doing this? 2, just me and the woman across the hall. So, just 2 of us in darkness. And yeah, 16 days. That's a lot. I think I could do it now, though. But she also ended up, I think, having the power go out on her at the end of her stay. So I got out just in time. Let's see. What else? Okay, so what type of food? Yeah, it was primarily vegetarian food. It was fascinating too because I had certain cravings and things that I don't think I've craved before in my life. And I think in part because you have this deep connection to your subconscious and memories and emotions are coming up, maybe that have been ignored for years, because in daily life, it's very easy to ignore things. You just go make yourself something to eat, or you just go online, or whatever you do to distract yourself. And again, you don't have that kind of out in the dark. And so I was listening to one of my recordings today of myself talking in the dark, and I recorded that. And it was like, I craved cooked carrots and Rice Krispies, and I could not stomach eggs at all, which is exactly like I was when I was like 9. I couldn't eat it. Eggs I found to be the most disgusting food. And same thing in the dark. Like, and she noticed, and she knew that, and she did not cook me eggs again. So that, yeah, it was my experience where I'm like, cooked carrots. Well, I used to eat that as a child, actually, and really liked it. So, okay. So when I got the food, how did I get it in the dark without seeing any light when I opened the door? So they had extra buffers for things, and that was one of the ways. So when I opened the door's here. Just beyond the door, there were actually layers of black fabric, so that even the basket was within the black fabric. And the hall was black. But also when I went out in the hall, I would put this thing on called a mindfold. And it's a blindfold, that allows you to have your eyes completely open but not see anything. So I would do that when I was in the hall, because even though it was dark, at the end of the hall, there was the living room and then the kitchen, which, again, I could hear a little bit. And the living room and kitchen clearly weren't completely dark. So I just, wore that mindfold just as an extra buffer as well. Okay. Looking at the other questions. Yes. All right. So the next question I'm just going to go to is, was I scared? Did I experience any fear at all? Actually, I really, I was about to say intended to have a fear. No, I really expected to have fear. And I had all my fear. I had complete terror, actually, before going into the dark. I had zero fear in the dark. So I expected to have fear in the dark because the only person who I knew of who had gone into the dark had fear. Like day 3 or day 4, she said she had this intense experience of fear and negative energy and this and that. And then breaking through that, she had ecstasy. Okay, so I went into this experience expecting to have fear. To the point where, as I was packing, then the night before I left my house on Friday, on Thursday night, I was like lying on the floor crying because I was so afraid of this experience. In fact, my biggest fear, it's a little bit funny to me now, but my biggest fear was getting lost in the hallway and not knowing where to go. Okay, which makes no sense because I could just like feel my way down the hall and get a sense of a door and go in a door. But I was like freaking scared out of my mind, like of not knowing where I was, which did happen. It happened. They have this ginormous bathroom, and yeah, at one point I was like, I really have no understanding of where I am in this bathroom in this moment at all. Right? Zero. I do not know where I am. Like I've never been in the spot that I'm in right now before, so I'm just gonna backtrack until I find something I recognize. Right? And it actually kind of made me laugh when I came in, and I'm like, whoa, this bathroom is huge, But I had no fear in the dark. I really had my fear before I went into the dark. The fear was the anticipation of having fear in the dark. And so I lay on the floor and I just cried. And I was crying, anticipating, like I was crying in terror about going into the dark retreat. And I breathed through it, and that terror became bliss. I just breathed through it and breathed, and then it just became a blissful moment, and I had tears of bliss instead of tears of terror. Would I do it again? Yes, 100% I would do it again. Yeah, there's no doubt I would do it again. It was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. And I mean, I got to experience me as one with everything. I got to experience the re-experience a spiritual, I don't like the word spiritual awakening, a oneness experience I had when I was 20 years old. I got to realize that I could recreate that experience at will. I think for me, just the dark gave me a sense of personal power, a sense of my own personal power that I hadn't recognized before. Yeah, and a real connection to those practices that I've had for a long time, that now I recognize the value even more deeply. Just like, especially breathing practices, they're so profound at changing the nervous system. Did I pee in the dark, and was the bathroom connected to my room? Okay, yes. So before I go into those bathroom questions, do you have any questions about things I just said? All right, we'll go back into the mundane aspects. All right, breathing. Yeah. When I was like, yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about breathing, and then we'll get to peeing, right? When I was, I'm trying to think of whether it was when I was 20. I think it was when I was, I know it was when I was 20. I met this teacher from India. Her name is Sri Karuna Mai, and she taught me breathing for the chakras. And she's an Indian guru. She's worshipped as an embodiment of the goddess of knowledge, Saraswati, in India. And she's incredibly psychic. And so I learned breathing practices for the chakras from her. And I practiced those in the dark and just reaped the benefits of knowing those practices. And then what I would do, because time in the dark is kind of timeless, right? It's endless. So just like most people, my mind can be a little distractible, and I can be like, okay, on to the next thing. But I decided to play with that and just in India, when they do ceremonies, sometimes you get these little sugar candies. Like they're tiny, tiny little sugar candies. So I was like, okay, I'll play with myself in a way, and I'll put one of these sugar candies in my mouth. And the idea is that these have been supercharged with energy. Okay, so they're not just like your basic sugar candy you would go get at a store. They had like mantras set over there and the vibrational medicine of that. And so I would take a sugar candy and just sit and meditate until that had dissolved. And then I would be like, okay, back to breathing practices. And I do breathing practices, 27 times, and then come back and take a sugar candy and just sit until it dissolved. I have no idea how long it took, and it didn't matter. So I did that quite a lot in the last days of the retreat. And someone asked if I worked out. I did some gentle yoga, but it wasn't really there to like do plank and do all sorts of, gymnastics. I did a lot of fascial releasing things. So that was fun. Yes. Okay. Insights into the nature of ego. Yes. So, I'm getting the message to not talk about that yet, so I will circle back around to that. Thank you. And I did re-experience things from the past, and I did experience profound things not related to the past. So yes, Sharon's, this is her question. And any awareness about the future? Yes. Okay. So I am not the only person who has had this experience. As you go on in time in the dark, right? As I told you, I started to see like visual sacred geometry in front of my third eye. And sorry, people on Zoom, sorry, people on YouTube Live. There are people on Zoom too, so I'm more looking at them because they've written questions, but I see your questions too. Thank you. So I started to see like this sacred geometry, particularly. Let me actually see if I can pull up a picture of the flower of life, because that is one of the things that I started to see. And the other thing I started to see a lot of was the Sri Yantra. So let me just pull those both up so you can see those. I don't know how to do it on YouTube Live, but you can also Google that. So I'm going to pull up this picture. I do not have copyrights to this picture. I'm just like randomly pulling it up on Google now. And you see it right in, like vibrating just right as a circle in front of your third eye. So that is the flower of life. Ta-da. I can't see well at all. Sorry. And then the Sri Yantra too. Oops. This is actually a symbol. The Sri Yantra is a symbol I've worked with since I was about 20. So it doesn't surprise me that I would have seen that. But these are both ancient symbols. And the flower of life has been found in every civilization from Egypt to South America. And it's very interesting in that way. But here, let me see if I can find you an image of the Sri, S-R-I, Yantra, Y-A-N-T-R-A. So I also saw, I didn't really see this boxy part, but I definitely saw all these triangles in front of my third eye. So that started to happen. And then I started to talk with beings. Now I kind of told you I've been working with like Indian kind of meditation and stuff for a couple of decades. So if I was going to talk with anyone, I would have thought they were like going to be Indian goddesses and, stuff like that. And then, so Schiffer's asking, yes, this will be on YouTube. Who showed up? You're not going to believe this. I didn't believe this. Dionysus. And if you don't know who Dionysus is the sort of the Greek god of wine and celebration. So, and I got to talk with Dionysus and get a sense of like, no, he's all about life is to be lived and experienced, and God is in every single thing there is. So why would you differentiate? This has God in it and that doesn't. It all does. And so yeah, Vicky says partay, right? It's like, for real. Dionysus, Athena, and then an aspect of the Divine Mother from India. And all of these are potentiations that we have in ourself. So all of these are energies, right? The energies of these that have been, and I asked them, like, are you embodied? And they said, yes, we're embodied. We're just not in a physicality like you are, right? It's a different kind of energetic frequency that is not as dense as a physical body, right? Yeah, Schiffer says, I believe that people show up that we love and follow. But the thing is, I didn't love and follow Dionysus, right? Like, I just had this experience of him. So now what's funny is that in ancient Greece, there's a cave that Dionysus was said to have inhabited in Greece, and we visited that cave, and that was my most profound experience of Greece too. More profound than Delphi, more profound than anywhere else. It was like the energy there was so strong. All right. Good. So Sharon, your question about did I find out information about the future? Yes, in regard to my own future, that version, and you could say, oh, well, Kathy, you're making this up. That's totally fine. I mean, we could then say they're parts of myself that, are talking to myself, different energies. That's fine too, if you want to take that spin and perspective on it. It doesn't matter to me. So the Divine Mother aspect, which is actually this, like, I perceived her as a Devi, a Hindu Devi, but I mean, it's the same goddess that shows up in Israel, Shekinah. And she asked me, like, what would you like to know? And so I would say, I want to know about my business. And then I got information about my business. I want to know about my son and, healing what he's going through. And then I got information about my son and healing. So that was a very profound experience for me because of like I think a lot of times we want to know things about the future, and it's very reassuring to have information, and information that's applicable, like steps you can do and things about that. Right. Essentially, she said, this year is for having fun. I was like, okay, I can have fun. So Kaylin is asking, did I get the sense that energy of Dionysus is embodied through me? No, I got the sense that I was being invited to more of that sense of celebrating the fact that God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, is in all things all the time. And now is the time to talk about Colleen's question that she asked earlier. So I don't remember the question. Okay. Insights into the nature of ego. So as I deepened into my meditation, what resulted is this experience of one fabric. There's one thing in the universe, and everything is made of it. Right? There's not one thing that's not made of it. There's only one substance. And so even the contraction you feel, the frustration that you feel, is made of love. And that's the only thing there is. Like, if you feel deeply enough into any emotion that you have, it's all made of the same thing. And I experienced that at a very profound level, that like once you have that experience, it's inextricably attached to, you know, your reality now, like my reality now. I know that even though I feel pissed off at my son, that pissed offness is made of love. Even though I feel fearful about whatever it is, deeply within that, there's only one thing that exists, and that fear is made of that, which is love. So all of the striving and the efforting and the earning that the ego tries to do, trying to be enough, trying to be loved, is pointless, because you're already it. Nothing can take that away from you. Nothing can alter that about you. You're loved. You're loving. You're lovable. And that's true whether you believe it or not. And it will be true forever. And you can take the most profound moment you've ever had in your life. For me, it was dancing on stage when I think I was 19. And I had this experience in the middle of the performance. It was actually kind of near the end of the performance, where everything just stopped, right? Like, the world was still going, but things didn't just stop, but like, I was now everything in that moment. And so for me, that was the most profound spiritual experience I've ever had, right? I didn't will that into existence. I was just dancing, and then all of a sudden there's not a me, right? There's not a me that's separate or differentiated from you or from the theater or from anything. It's just oneness, right? Just dancing as Kathy, and then boom, oneness. So I always kept dancing to find that, right? I wanted to recreate that. I wanted to get to that again, and dancing was the only way I knew to get that. Because that, like, there's total completeness in that. There's total fulfillment, right? There's not needing anything, because you are everything. So I kept dancing to try to get that experience. And in the dark, I realized I can recreate that experience anytime I want, because it's me. It's you also. You may not have had that experience, like, you know, that you remember, but that's what you are. Your oneness. You know, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and it says God is omnipotent, omniscient. That means God is everywhere, omnipresent, everywhere. There is not a cell that it's not in. If you don't like the word God, use something else. But that's so in the dark, I realized I can enter that state at will. That's why I would go into the dark again. So So there's a question in the chat, and I'm just going to address it this way, and that is that we're all that love. We just don't realize it most of the time. And everything you're trying to do to get happiness is really an effort to get back to that state of oneness, which you are. Right? And it's never going to work, because all of those things, whether it's a boyfriend, whether it's more money, whether it's to heal your ankle, to get more followers, whatever it is only temporary satisfaction. I mean, you've already found that, right? When you wanted to, you were like, oh, I need to graduate and then I'll be happy. And then you're happy for like 2 days. And then you're like, no, I need the job and then I'll be happy. And then you get the job and you're happy for like a week. And then, no, I need the boyfriend now, and, or the girlfriend. And then you're happy with them until you're unhappy with them and they're crazy making. And then, we'll be happy when we have the kids, or when the kids are grown up, or whatever it is. Like, all of that happiness is transitory, but all of the things you're seeking to get happy are because your nature is happiness. And you're disconnected from that. The moment you reconnect to that, none of those other happiness things are like, they're like a sugar candy. They're like so minuscule. You're like, why would I ever want that? It's like a plastic toy you wanted when you were 5, Any other happiness is like that. You're not satisfied with plastic toys. How would I prepare for the dark? Okay. Any other questions before we get back to like peeing in the dark and things? I will talk about how I prepared for the dark after I say this. I got my period right before I went into the dark, and I was upset about that. I was like, so I was a little bit dramatic about that and upset about that, because like, that's the worst thing, right? Like, universe, why are you doing that to me? Come on. So my mom gave me like these mega super pads, and I was armed with like a bag full of mega super pads. And I got to the place. Now, this is a really funny story. So I got to the place, and I'm like, yeah, I'm having my period, And she's like, that is wonderful. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right? This is awful. She's like, well, that's the first kind of dark room. And I was like, oh, yeah, the red tent. Yeah, that I get it. Okay, fine. And I was like, but I mean, I'm not going to be able to see. What if I get blood on the toilet or something? And she's like, oh, I don't think the other woman would mind. And I was like, if the roles were reversed, I would flip and mind. I'm sorry. I'm just not at that level of like allowance. So anyway, she was like, well, I will clean the bathroom more frequently if it makes you feel better. And I was like, yeah, I really would. So, how do you prepare for the dark? Bags of mega pads. Oh gosh. Yeah, I was looking into like, can I change weeks that I go? I mean, I really do not want this experience. But I figured it was going to be too burdensome to change weeks, so I just went armed with all my mega pads. Now it was fine. It turned out fine. Like, I knew when I was done. I knew, but it was, it's a whole nother level of like comfort with your body and like listening, and they did give us a pee bucket for our room. They said, you know what, if you're really tired, some people do not like to go to the bathroom. It's too far away. Listen, it was 2 feet from my bedroom. I was not going to get lost in the hall. And it was not too far away. It was actually kind of like a field trip. I'm like, yay, I'm going to the bathroom. I get out of my room for, 5 minutes. Woo! So I would like make my way out of the bathroom, out of my room to the bathroom, the huge ass bathroom that they had. But I did have this pee bucket, and it was plastic. It was like 2 feet tall, and it had charcoal in it. And they said, well, if you don't want to go to the bathroom, you can pee in this thing. So I did on the first day. And then after that, I was like, no, I'm just going to use the bathroom. And so I would make my way down the hall 2 feet and then go into the bathroom. And I'd always like stick my leg out like this. I mean, not that high, but stick my leg out. And if I stuck my leg out and then stepped, there was the toilet. And so that's how I knew, like, okay, the toilet's going to be right there. And so the toilet part was pretty easy. And the sink part was pretty easy. I had my own drawer. It was the left side drawer, and the other girl had the right side drawer. And then we had our own hook, and mine was the left side hook, and hers was the right side hook for our towel. And I carried what I suggest when you go to the dark, Doug, if you're going to go. I took a little mesh bag that I kept all my stuff in. And then I just hung it, on my hook, and then I hung it in the shower also. And that way everything just stayed in that mesh bag. And the shower, again, was completely pitch black. There was, the whole place was black. And you just learn to deal with it, right? The hot water that I like, the way I like it, is at about, 10 o'clock. And then so I'd turn the thing to 10 o'clock and it would be fine. My stuff, if you go into the dark, don't make this mistake. I did not always put the lid on completely, like seal the lid of my stuff. So like I took shampoo and conditioner and some soap. They're all in little plastic bottles with a little plastic cap. And then I took some oil because it was winter and dry. And so I didn't press the lid down enough, and it spilled everywhere. But I didn't know because it was dark. So the woman who brought us food, she found that my oil spilled all over, and she cleaned it up for me. So you're essentially sometimes a little child. You're just innocent. You don't know things. And yeah, the shower situation worked out better than expected. Any other questions? So did you pee, eat, change clothes? Yes. Other questions about that? And then I'll head into how would you prepare? La, 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 la. Yes, you're welcome. All right. Okay. So, Leonie, I'm seeing your question now, and then I'm gonna go into. I'm seeing this one here, and then I'll go into the how would I prepare? Seeing myself. How was it to see myself in the mirror after a week? It was weird. It was weird. It's weird to not see yourself for a whole week, right? I mean, we're used to seeing ourselves. We're used to knowing what our hair looks like. But it didn't really matter all week, and I didn't give it much thought, And then when I came out, I was like, oh, this is weird, But I looked into my own eyes and saw the love in my eyes. And, yeah, that's actually a practice. I've worked with this enlightened man for quite a while now, several years now, and one of his practices is love yourself through the eyes, and do a mirror gazing practice every day. And it's one of the more profound practices that I do. And there are things you tell yourself during that practice, but yeah, that's one of my favorite practices. So I just did that once I came out, and It was a beautiful experience. Preparing for the dark. To me, if I were to host a dark retreat, I would have a questionnaire including, are you under psychiatric care? And if so, for what? Right? And I've thought about doing this because I think it's really, really, I had a 20-year meditation practice to lean on when I went into the dark. I mean, we've just seen a football player who didn't last 3 days in the dark. I really feel like you need a foundational practice and connection with yourself in order to go in, right? And so if I were to host people, I would say, what kind of practices do you do? How comfortable are you, sitting by yourself? How comfortable are you not being on the phone for a whole day? Okay? How comfortable are you, in meditation? And Kaylin asked, did I use the mala? I used the mala a lot. I use the mala, a lot, at least several times a day, at least 2. And I used it in relation to breathing, actually. So here's a useful way to use the mala. You can inhale with one mantra, you can hold your breath with another mantra, you exhale with a third mantra, and you hold your breath. So there's 4 beats right there. Okay. Hold the breath. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Like that. And you can make your way through all 108 beats by doing that, which I did. And then I'd breathe faster and do 108, and then I'd breathe faster than that and do 108, and then, like all sorts of breathing games. What's his name? Sri Ravi Shankar has a practice like that. Slow breathing, middle breathing, fast breathing, slow breathing, middle breathing, fast breathing, like that. So yeah, I did some breath of fire. So if I were to have people, in a dark retreat, which I am, contemplating, there are some places in Hawaii that it's possible. I would also teach breathing practices, because it is one way to bypass all that chattiness of the mind and help the mind just slip into a more relaxed state. And that's useful whether you're in the dark or not, because we all, the yogis consider breathing practices the most important piece from age 28 till age 60. So that's quite a span, and most of us are in it. Like the asana are the most important practice until you're 28. And then the breathing is the most important piece until you're like 60. And then the meditation and letting go, learning to let go gracefully, is the most important from age 60 on. So that's just like the 3 stages of life, and the way they consider that. So breathing is how I would prepare. Some people prepare by blacking off their bathroom and just staying in their bathroom for a day and doing like, okay, I'm going into the dark, and seeing how comfortable I am with that. Right? Or if you have a nice big clothes closet, you could do it that way, where you just go in there and you're in there for the whole day, and maybe you took like a box of Cheerios or something. Have someone feed you, and you just put your mindful on, and they deliver your food, and then you eat it and try to figure out what it is. And that's a way of doing it too. I really think the fruits came after day 3. Like, it's really worth attempting to stay in longer than 3 days, because for the first 3 days it's just mental chatter, blah 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 blah, and then after that it's like letting go. So that's my recommendation. And that wasn't only true of my experience, but my friend who ended up in the dark and cold said that, yeah, for 3 days her mind was just like blah blah blah, and then by day 4 a sense of peace emerges. All right. please, if I have missed any of your questions, please let me know. I don't want to keep y'all forever here. But, Aaron Rodgers did come out early. He's the football player who went into the dark. See, I was smart and I told everyone, you know what? I'm going in the dark for 3 days. And then, see, I lasted longer. He told everyone, I'm going into 4 days, and then came out after 2. So let's see. Yeah. So there's a question. I sense struggle with someone, yet in the energy I know and perceive, everything is good as it is. Yeah, so, I mean, underneath everything, all is well, right? All is working out. The entire universe is dancing in harmony together, but it doesn't look that way a lot of the time, right? It looks like we have struggles and conflict and lessons and even wars and things like that. And my suggestion with your question is, if you can settle your mind down, into what you're really sensing, which is that everything is good, then wisdom and answers emerge from that place, right? But the surface level turbulence of your mind, wisdom and answers don't really come from that place, right? Wisdom and answers are always available. Sometimes you just have to go a little deeper down to allow those to arise. Good. Okay, so I want to wrap it up. Are there any other questions or pertinent things that I haven't mentioned? Oh, I was terrible at using toothpaste in the dark. So I I would have felt really bad for her if I had taken toothpaste. I took tooth powder, which I like better anyway, and you can get tooth powder on Amazon. It comes in a little glass jar, and you just stick your toothbrush in there, and then you brush your teeth with it. A wet toothbrush, and then you brush your teeth with it. So that worked much better for me than toothpaste. I did try toothpaste at home. It did not go well. Yeah. I did not have in the back of my mind that I could leave at any time. Yeah, I guess I didn't really entertain the idea of leaving, because I was there for the experience. So I was going to go as long as I could go. Did you see the space and light? Yes. He's asking if I saw did I see the room before it was completely dark? Yes. That would have been crazy if I hadn't seen the room and the light. And then I'm just like, okay, where's my bed? I had I told you I brought some fun stuff. So first off, I brought food. I brought bananas and 2 chocolate bars and walnuts and seaweed and what else? A couple other things, right? I brought my sweet and salty stuff, and I had a drawer full of food. Okay. Then I would make my chocolate and dried banana sandwiches that were about this big and like eat those very quietly. And so I brought food. The next thing I brought was essential oils. Essential oils are amazing to take into the dark because they take on a whole different level. It's almost like being a wine taster, right? Like you begin to recognize, oh, it has this sharpness to it, and it has the citrusy note that I never smelled before, and it has this, right? Because you have time and you don't have other senses competing for your attention. So there's a deliciousness to the scent that emerges that you may not have smelled before. I totally understand if you have to go, because we're going more than an hour. So bye. Essential oils were amazing to take. I also took Rescue Remedy, and Rescue Remedy is a tincture that's designed to help if you're under stress. And that was a very useful thing to have. I took a number of other tinctures too, just related to different things. One was for stilling the mind. I took like 5 or 6 different tinctures. And I had a small Tibetan bowl. Now, the woman in the other room from me had the crystal bowls, right? She had probably at least 4 of them I could hear. I took like the world's tiniest Tibetan bowl. It was like this big, and I could just go ding. I took a massager, which I used and like rolled out my arms and my legs. I took a yoga mat, but they already had yoga mats. I would have asked. I did think to ask if they had one, and I didn't. So, so I had my little box of self-care items in it. That's what had the essential oils and the tinctures and the massage roller and a dry skin brush was awesome. So just dry skin brushing was a great thing to do in the dark. And a couple other things in that box, but I just can't think. I can show you the box. And the name of where I went, it's a pop-up place, so it doesn't exist all of the time. It's called Oregon Dark Retreats, Oregon. And when my friend got there, she goes, it's a little less like fancy than I expected, but I guess it won't matter when I'm in the dark. So the people there are lovely. There's another place in Crestone, Colorado. You can go for the dark retreat. And that it's primarily a Buddhist place. I had looked this up and initially, and they ask like, well, who have you trained under and this and that? And I'm like, I haven't trained under anybody, right? I just want to do this. And but there is a woman who rents it out a couple times a year, and you don't have to have all that extensive Buddhist training. You can talk with her, and I don't know how she vets you, but you can go do that. How did I know which oil I was picking up? You open it and smell it, and then you know. But that's a little unjust. I mean, some of them had different bottles and sizes of bottles too, and stuff like that. So yeah. That's how part of the fun was not really knowing, right? It's like, okay, which oil am I going to get? Oh, this one's lemon. So on Facebook, my name is Kathy Jones Williams. And if you want to see my box of, all my little goodies and doodads I took, the box is there on Facebook. You just scroll down. I did not use my phone. Remember, phones emit light. And so I'm responding to the question, sounds like you kept a voice journal. I actually, oh my gosh, good night, 2 a.m. Well, thank you for coming. I journaled in the dark. And the way I did it, they actually gave note cards to, give a little message. So, and then they saved them for you so you could see how terribly you wrote in the dark. So my first message, it was something like this. I had this realization that I hadn't gotten a plumber for my mother before I went in the dark. So I said, Christopher has the name for the plumber. And then I went like that. He can call or my mom can call. Can you give her the message? Right? And so it like things intersected and it looked very cute. After that, I got significantly better at writing in the dark because what I would do is write and then cover it up with this hand and then write and then cover it up and write and cover it up. And so my journal taking, my note taking got much, much better. I suggest that style. It really works. Okay. Then when I was done, I would fold over the page so I didn't use it again. Then sometimes I would just write on this page, maybe that one, and then go to the next page. So I came up with my own strategy in the dark. It's Kathy's strategy. You're welcome to use it. You don't have to pay me royalties. Let's see. I did use a voice recorder too. I do have a video on YouTube about losing part of the voice recorder. In resistance to going. And then I had to borrow their voice recorder. And so basically, the voice recorder had no light. It would beep once when it was playing. Not playing, recording. And then beep twice when it paused. And do like a longer beep or a shorter beep. I don't remember now when it stopped. And then a different kind of beep, beep when it turned off. And so I knew based on the beeps whether it was recording or not. And that was a great tool to have because I've already listened to some of the recordings, and some of it's pure brilliance. And some of it was just, oh yeah, I find myself craving cooked carrots today. So there's a little bit of both. But I try to record every day a little bit just to say, oh, it's the end of day 3 and my mind is still yappity yap. Oh, wow, it's day 4 and things really changed today. So that gave me a sense of like what day it was. Also, the way I knew what day it was based on the food. So, we had oatmeal the first morning, then we had a curry the second morning, we had oatmeal again. Today must be the 4th morning, like that. So that is how I could tell time in the dark. Cool. All right. Never craved cooked carrots. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining me. And my next adventure is to Egypt. I'm going to be sending some people energy from Egypt. I'm actually going to get little ankhs for people and then send them out. And these are going to travel. They're going to be dipped in the Nile. They're going to go everywhere I go and on all the adventures. So let me know if you're interested in that. That's going to be super fun in 16 days. And yes, I got some ideas of the upcoming classes I'm going to teach as well while I was in the dark. So things that some of the practices that I was engaged in, I think are just so important for people to, amplify their ability to access that happiness that's deep within, right? It's always in you. It's not outside of you. And it's filled with wisdom, too. And that wisdom has the answers that you need whenever you need them. So, I'll be sending information out about that, those classes, and let me know if you're interested. So thank you all so much for being here and for your attention spans. I didn't expect to be talking for this long. So thank you all for your attention and your presence. And good to see some of you again, even if I'm just seeing your names. I don't get to see a smile to go with it. That's okay. I understand if you're in your pajamas or like, whatever. All right. And my dad's here too. Hi, Dad. Thank you for being here. Yes, very relaxed and calm. The dark really takes you to a place of relaxed and calm, right? The nervous system has less stimulation and a lot of people sleep a lot. I wish I had slept more, but I slept as much as my body, I guess, wanted to. Well, thank you. She says I look calm and younger. Hey, that's reason enough to go back, huh? Thank you so much, Mary and Sandra. I appreciate it. And whoever else is on YouTube Live, I'm so grateful that you're able to be here too. I know there's a party over here on Zoom, so I talked to them a lot. But I appreciate that y'all are here. And it would be nice to see your face soon too. All right. With that, I'm going to say aloha. I will send out a recording, and feel free to hit me up with any other questions about this or any of the other stuff I mentioned. All right. Aloha, everybody. Bye. Bye.